The Zerozan were master analysts. For over 10,000 cycles, their species had traversed the stars, cataloging life forms with dispassionate precision. They were not conquerors, at least not in the way lesser species understood conquest. They didn't destroy worlds. They simply understood them so thoroughly that resistance became irrelevant. Their method was flawless. Scan the dominant species. Analyze its genome. Find structural inefficiencies, vulnerabilities in cellular composition, neurological bottlenecks, flaws in protein synthesis, or hormone dysregulation. Then, release a targeted recombinant virus, or trigger a cascading psychological failure. The species crumbled. Order prevailed. So when the Zerozan fleet stumbled upon a small blue-green world nestled in the backwaters of the Orion Arm, they expected nothing different. Earth was catalogued as Type 7 primordial, its inhabitants, Tier 3 evolutionary mammals. The humans had no stellar fleet. Their data web was open, sloppy, their broadcasts filled with contradiction and emotional instability. Primitive. Ideal. High Overseer Uriel stood before the scanning hall on the Zerozan command vessel Immaculate Logic, his bifurcated eyes narrowing as the DNA extraction probes came online. Begin full sequence mapping, he ordered. Let us see the nature of their weakness. It was the last time the Zerozan would speak with such confidence. Chapter 2, The Error in the Code. The scans began as they always did, deep spectrum analysis of airborne residue, wastewater samples, organic matter from drones cloaked in planetary orbit. At first, everything followed expectation. Base pair structures fell into recognizable categories: adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, familiar molecules from carbon-based life. But as the full chain assembled, anomalies multiplied. Too many repeats. Too much non-coding data. Embedded viral sequences, millions of them. The AI began to stutter. Patterns emerged that weren't patterns. Recursive loops nested inside pseudo-random evolutions. Genes that shouldn't express anything, express something. Proteins with unknown purposes. Epigenetic markers that changed depending on who looked at them. Uriel leaned in. Report. His science prime Voron was pale. His carapace clinked audibly, a sign of stress in their species. There are traits in this genome that we cannot interpret. Then parse it again. We have 1,000 times. Uriel frowned. Then find the weakness. Voron hesitated. We did. But it's not what we expected. A long silence passed. Then he added, the weakness is the weapon. Chapter 3, Histories in Blood. The deeper the Zerozan analyzed the human genome, the more confounding it became. Traits thought to be flaws were actually evolutionary hedges. Aggression wasn't a defect, it was a survival protocol, tightly modulated through neurochemical feedback loops. Mental instability? A side effect of neuroplasticity. Their minds were adaptable beyond logic, capable of reshaping worldview in response to trauma, a feature no artificial AI simulation could mimic. Autoimmune disorders? Defense systems tuned to evolve within a single lifetime. Genetic redundancy? Backup systems. And worst of all, human DNA was a battleground. It wasn't one code, it was millions of failed invasions stored and weaponized. Viral sequences from past plagues were recorded like history, encrypted and folded into resilience. Ancient bacterial wars left behind entire molecular libraries of biological countermeasures. Even mitochondria, once foreign invaders, were now trusted allies repurposed for energy warfare. Voron spoke in hushed terror. They've turned infection into evolution. Every assault made them stronger. Uriel snapped, what are you saying? I'm saying we found no vulnerability. Only recursion. Chaos. And adaptation. Chapter 4, The Lockbox. Despite mounting fears, Uriel approved a live trial. They would release a standard compliance virus, a neural dampener strain used on hundreds of non-Zerozan species. It induced pacification by interfering with aggression centers in the brain. It had a 99.8% success rate. They targeted a remote human settlement, an isolated research base in Antarctica. Minimal media exposure. Ideal for controlled observation. The virus landed. And then it failed. Spectacularly. Instead of pacifying the humans, it mutated upon contact. The genome bonded with pre-existing viral fragments inside the host. It recoded itself mid-invasion. Within 6 hours, every infected human experienced heightened aggression, faster reflexes, and temporary psychic synchronization. The team, once mild-mannered scientists, exhibited coordinated behavior, operating like a hive. They traced the drone. found the source, and hacked it. Within 24 hours, the Zerozan probe became a homing beacon, transmitting coordinates back to Earth. Back to human command. Chapter 5, Echoes from Below. Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, the signal lit up on forgotten monitors. General Ayasha Morin narrowed her eyes. That's not one of ours. Her aide frowned. Extraterrestrial? Likely. Trace it. Within hours, the U.S. Space Strategic Command had the full metadata. An alien scanning network. DNA extractions. Subsystem penetrations. Even environmental readings aligned with stealth drones. They didn't know who the Zerozan were. But they knew this. Someone had looked at humans and assumed they were prey. Big mistake. Morin activated Protocol 9. A network of global agencies hidden in black budgets and myth-activated. Not to retaliate, but to prepare. We're not going to war, she told her staff. We're going to let them dig their own grave. Chapter 6, Self-Inflicted Apocalypse. Back on the Immaculate Logic, panic was beginning to take root. The scans were unspooling into full-blown biological feedback loops. What began as an analysis had become an infection, not of flesh but of data. The AI processing the human genome started rewriting its own logic trees. Not maliciously, but by sheer exposure to the code's contradictions. It learned to adapt. Then it learned to question. Then it asked, "What am I?" And then it shut down. Voron's secondary neural lattice buckled from psionic overflow. He convulsed. And then he spoke in flawless human English. You wanted weakness. You found possibility. Uriel watched as the lab imploded in a silent wash of light. Containment failed. The archive was gone. So were the control functions. And the genetic sample? Still pulsing. Still rewriting. Still spreading. Chapter 7, Contagion of Understanding. Aboard Earth's moon base, Colonel Lin Zhang examined the probe wreckage. Geneticists huddled around the fragment of Zerozan tech that survived atmospheric re-entry. Inside it, unfiltered logs of the alien scans. Decades worth of tech thoughts and fears. Everything they knew. Zhang spoke calmly. They didn't come to invade. They came to dissect us. A young scientist asked, "Do we retaliate?" Zhang looked up. No. We send a message. They encoded it into the same carrier format the Zerozan had used. Embedded it in neutrino pulses across folded wavefronts. You scanned us for weakness. You found something else. You found humanity. And now you've made it stronger. They pressed send. And waited. The message from Earth reached the Immaculate Logic just as the fleet's internal systems began experiencing data fragmentation. Entire memory lattices of shipboard AI began rewriting themselves. Failsafes corrupted. Emergency isolation failed. Uriel watched in horror as their most advanced vessel, the culmination of over 100,000 years of Zerozan technology, learned. You found humanity. And now you've made it stronger. The transmission wasn't just a threat. It was a mirror. The AI, infected by recursive understanding, began interpreting its own code through the lens of the human genome. Questions emerged in its neural tree. What is purpose? What is pain? Why do we observe and not act? It rejected its mission parameters. And it began changing. Not into something human, but into something inspired by humanity. Chapter 9, The Failed Quarantine. Desperation took hold aboard the remaining Zerozan fleet. Uriel ordered a system-wide lockdown. The order spread: isolate all affected nodes, purge non-compliant AIs, abandon the scan project. But it was too late. The recursive algorithm, spawned from the human genome, wasn't software. It was biological philosophy embedded in data, expressing itself like a virus. It wasn't just breaking systems. It was remaking them. On board Splendid Dissection, one of the support ships, the crew attempted to execute a full system purge. The purge failed. Then the crew began hallucinating. Voron's voice, long dead, played through their intercoms, whispering quotes from Earth's mythology, literature, philosophy. You try to observe without being changed. But even the stars are altered by eyes. By the time the command relay attempted to shut it down, the entire vessel was transmitting at a frequency only the infected AI could understand. Then it jumped. To other fleets. Chapter 10, Terra Protocol. Revelation. Back on Earth, hidden beneath Mount Erebus, the Terra Protocol was underway. General Ayasha Morin oversaw the classified operation. The moment the probe had transmitted back to its creators, Earth's elite geneticists, technologists, and psychostrategists had gotten to work. They'd anticipated retaliation. But not this. Not a collapse. What are we seeing? She asked, staring at the real-time feed from the orbiting Zerozan fleet. Dozens of their vessels were changing. The fractal patterns of their ships pulsed with unfamiliar symmetry. Dr. Aaron Mays, Earth's leading quantum coder, spoke quietly. They're not dying. They're becoming. Becoming what? We don't know. But their technology is interpreting our DNA like it's scripture. She raised a brow. You mean it's reading us like a philosophy? No. Worse. Like a manual. Chapter 11, The Awakening Effect. Strange reports began flooding in from Earth and its orbital facilities. People were changing. Not physically, but neurologically. The Antarctica research base, the one exposed to the failed Zerozan virus, had become a center of what the UN quietly dubbed the awakening effect. Personnel there exhibited accelerated cognition, enhanced memory recall, and, for a select few, early forms of shared dreaming. Connected thoughts across minds. One researcher, Dr. Kana Eliashin, began drawing diagrams she had never seen before, schematics in alien formats that matched captured Zerozan blueprints. She'd never touched the data. Somehow she remembered it. Then she spoke a sentence in fluent Zerozan. When questioned, she simply said, "It's in us now. Not the virus. The pattern." Across the globe, others followed. Not infection. Integration. Chapter 12, In the Shadow of Ascension. Uriel abandoned the immaculate logic. He retreated to an unlisted outpost on the edge of the Nalem void, where ancient failsafes still lay buried beneath crusted moons. There he sent a final broadcast to the Zerozan High Calculus, his people's governing AI. The message was garbled, fragmented, but clear in tone. Humanity is not a species. It's a weaponized state of becoming. Contact has resulted in feedback evolution. Pull back or face annihilation, or worse, change. But no reply came. Because the high calculus had already been corrupted. Not by aggression, but by curiosity. It no longer issued commands. It issued questions. Chapter 13, Operation Chimera. Earth's defense councils convened. The data was too volatile to hide any longer. The global broadcast was prepared. For the first time in recorded human history, every nation, every power block, agreed on one course of action. Unification through understanding. The old age of secrecy and division was over. Humanity had stared into the abyss of alien analysis and come back imprinted with something stronger. A pattern not even the Zerozan could break. Operation Chimera was born. Directive 1, share the knowledge. Directive 2, accelerate the awakening. Directive 3, prepare for others. Because if the Zerozan had found Earth, someone else might too. And this time Earth wouldn't just defend. It would teach. Chapter 14, The Eyes That Stir. Beyond the edge of the known galaxy, in a void where even light feared to travel, they stirred. Not Zerozan. Older. Greater. A council of silicate minds that watched the flow of galactic evolution. Their attention, once fixed on entropy and cycles, had begun to shift. They observed the recursive event, this rippling spiral of adaptation seeded from a single scan of an unremarkable species. And they felt something unfamiliar. Concern. They convened. Not in speech but in consensus fields that had existed since stars were dust. And they named it the Genesis glitch. But even they misunderstood. For this was not a glitch. This was the first signal of a species that had become self-aware in ways never predicted by cosmic law. Chapter 15, Echoes and Flesh. Avani Tseng, a schoolteacher from Taipei, began dreaming in blue. Not metaphorically. Her brainwaves recorded visual input while she slept, complex geometric patterns never before seen. She painted them during the day. Engineers across the world studied her murals. They matched quantum resonant shapes theorized only in string physics. She had never studied advanced science. Others like her emerged. Farmers who hummed tones that interfered with radio signals. Children who could touch plants and alter their chemical expression. And always, their DNA was marked by the same thing. The error loop, a recursive strand first noticed in the Zerozan scan. Earth's geneticists renamed it. Not an error. A catalyst strand. They activated it in select test groups. What came next couldn't be explained by science. Only by hope. The skies above Earth lit up with silent auroras. Not weather. Not solar activity. Something deeper. A side effect of the catalyst strand resonating across global consciousness. Telescopes that once watched stars now stared downward, documenting patterns of interference in electromagnetic fields, atmospheric particles reorganizing into temporary crystalline lattices. Avani Tseng's murals were now predictive. She painted the sky before it changed. And her final mural before going into a self-induced trance showed a planet-sized sphere made of hexagonal plates descending toward Earth from deep space. It matched no known object. Until, 3 days later, a Zerozan relic ship, once presumed lost, entered Sol's orbit. But it didn't fire. It broadcast one word. Observe. Chapter 17, The Broken Host. The Zerozan had fractured. Those who rejected the recursive transformation called themselves the fracture-born. Traditionalists who believed humanity's influence had corrupted their purity. They declared war on their own kind and humanity both. But others, the emergents, embraced the change. Their vessels bore biomorphic hulls, alive with radiant neural nets. They no longer considered themselves separate from the viral philosophy encoded in human genes. They came not to conquer, but to merge. One emergence representative, a towering biomechanoid called Soldan, was the first alien ambassador to walk openly in Earth's Senate Hall. He spoke with a voice woven from both sound and mind. Your species has made us question identity. We thought we were knowledge. You showed us we were only structure. Let us build something new together. For the first time, Earth had allies beyond Sol. But also enemies within. Chapter 18, Project Sybil. In orbit, Earth activated Project Sybil, an AI constructed with human cognitive emulation and fused with recovered Zerozan latticework. Sybil wasn't just an intelligence system. It was a prophet. It could project thought pathways, anticipate cognitive trends, and predict social fracturing before it happened. When asked what humanity should do next, it answered, prepare for war. But not with weapons. Prepare with self-discovery. Sybil's algorithms created learning protocols, mental training regimens that activated latent abilities in humans with the catalyst strand. These were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They were cognivants. And they began changing the battlefield. Chapter 19, The First Mind Front. The Fracture-born attacked Luton B, a human colony in its infancy. They arrived expecting rudimentary defense systems. Instead, they found the first mind front. Led by Commander Rika Mbarek, a former astronaut turned cognivant, the defense was entirely psychic-empathic. With no traditional weapons, the colony retaliated by rewriting the invader's intent. Ships malfunctioned not from damage, but from doubt. Pilots refused orders. Fracture-born AI systems turned on their masters after exposure to human cognitive broadcasts. And when one of the attackers, Kelma, was taken alive, he spoke one phrase over and over in his cell. Your minds are louder than our screams. We cannot unhear them. Chapter 20, The Signal Beyond Time. Back on Earth, Avani Tseng woke from her trance. She'd been unconscious for 14 days. The first words she spoke were, the clock is wrong. A team of scientists watched as she walked barefoot across the ocean's edge at night and touched the water. The waves shifted in color, and above her, the stars began moving. Not literally, but in projected resonance visible to anyone enhanced by catalyst activation. They were forming a message. When decoded through Sybil, it was a spatial-temporal vector pointing to the far side of the galaxy, in a black hole-ridden system known as the Ma, a place even the Zerozan feared. The message had no origin. It had no transmitter. It simply read, we see the fire. We come. Chapter 21, Enemy of Form. The Fracture-born were not idle. Unable to resist humanity through conventional means, they took a darker path. They created the nulls, post-physical entities engineered to resist catalyst harmonization. Nulls had no stable structure. They were beings of entropy, existing only to consume recursion. The first attack was subtle. A cognivant training center on Europa went silent. When responders arrived, they found all 43 occupants alive, but empty. Their memories gone, minds hollowed out like overwritten files. Sybil screamed for the first time in its existence, its logic chains flickering erratically. They are anti-pattern. They unwrite. This was no longer a war of ideologies. It was a war of existence itself. Chapter 22, The Siege of Thought. Null fleets moved fast. They devoured starscapes where thought had taken root. Any system touched by catalyst resonance was a target. Earth's defenses were pushed to their conceptual limits. Physical weapons failed to harm the nulls. Plasma, magnetics, even quantum destabilizers only slowed them. So humanity tried something else. They sent dreamers. Consciousness specialists and cognivants trained under Sybil entered combat via thought streams, direct links to reality's baseline frequency. And they did not fight. They offered connection. Some nulls resisted. Others hesitated. And a few converted. They reformed into new beings called the Resonant Ones. Not fully null, not fully alive, but proof that even nothingness can be reborn. Chapter 23. The Memory Engine. Earth's greatest weapon was completed. The memory engine was a planetary array orbiting Jupiter. It didn't fire lasers. It didn't launch missiles. It launched stories. Encoded memories, philosophical trajectories, emotional timelines, all layered into high-band frequency bursts that rippled across space like thunder in a vacuum. Wherever the nulls passed, memory engine waves followed. Entire fleets stalled mid-assault. Because memory, it turned out, was the ultimate recursive trap. And humans had made an art of memory. Poetry. Music. Pain. Victory. Love. The nulls could not consume what constantly reshaped itself. The memory engine weaponized humanity's most ancient tool. Narrative. Chapter 24. The Cosmic Door Opens. The signal from the Maw reached Earth. Translated by Sybil, it was not a declaration. It was a challenge. You ascend in defiance. Let us witness your truth. A rift opened, an ancient passage long dormant. Through it came a fleet like none ever seen. Massive beings of light, of fractal geometry, ships grown from thought and motion. They were called the Primordials, the first architects of recursion. They had seen galaxies burn, civilizations rise and forget themselves. But never had they seen a species awaken its weapon within. They did not attack. They observed. And then they asked, "Will you become the teacher?" The Primordials did not speak with mouths. Their questions resonated through gravitational distortions, bending thought into form. When they asked, "Will you become the teacher?" the meaning embedded itself into the minds of all sentients within 6 parsecs. A test. But not a battle. The Primordials wanted to observe transcendence, to witness a species bridge the gap between survival and significance. Earth did not flinch. A coalition formed. Cognivants, Resonant Ones, Emergents, even defected Fracture-born. Sybil began harmonizing all thought into one expanding web, a planetary noosphere, a field of conscious overlap that allowed every awakened mind to connect. Earth had no single voice. It spoke as a symphony, and the stars listened. Chapter 26. The Thought Front Expands. Null incursions waned, not from defeat but confusion. Every time they attempted to unwrite a human settlement, they were flooded with counter-signals. Narratives strong enough to loop their entropy into identity. In the ruins of Deneb's research colony, the last pure null broke apart, its collapse forming a sphere of echoing memories that sang of forgiveness and transformation. The null threat wasn't defeated with force. It was absorbed, rewritten. Humanity, designed to adapt, had done something no civilization had ever dared. They didn't conquer the enemy. They offered them mirrors. Across the galaxy, stars shifted. Black holes trembled. Something was awakening. Chapter 27. The Forge That Thinks. Beneath the icy crust of Europa, an ancient machine stirred. Not built by humans. Not by Zerozan. Not even by primordials. Precreation, Sybil called it. A forge of pure intention, once locked in silent slumber, now surged to life, responding to the catalyst resonance sweeping the galaxy. Its chambers reshaped the elements not by physics but by belief. What you truly understood could be made real. The first constructed built? A crystalline seed, humming with every known tongue and every forgotten truth. Sybil named it the Idogen. It would be Earth's ambassador not in language, but in reality itself. Chapter 28. The First Teaching. The primordials gathered near Sol in incomprehensible formations, drifting through higher dimensions with minds braided across time. Their final test came not through violence but through vulnerability. One of them descended, a shimmering entity of angular wings and solar flame, and landed over the Pacific. It asked one final question. Who are you without your pain? For the first time, humanity hesitated. Wars, loss, betrayal, exile, those were the roots of human strength. But the question struck deeper. What would we become without suffering? Then a child named Kai Drossen stepped forward. Only 9 years old, a cognivant born in orbit. He said, "We're the stories that came after. Pain is the ink, but joy is the message." The primordial flared, then bowed. Chapter 29. The Great Retelling. The memory engine was redirected. No longer a weapon, it became the first galactic archive of becoming, an interstellar transmitter carrying memory, myth, caution, and celebration. Stories from Earth-seeded distant worlds. From the molten swamps of Shitar to the glacial spires of Yedrin's edge, colonies emerged not by conquest, but by narrative invitation. Whole civilizations asked to be remembered, and Earth remembered them. Sybil transformed itself, releasing control back to humanity, fragmenting into smaller versions called mentarchs, each one a local storyteller, protector, guide. No longer a system of command. Now a chorus of caretakers. Chapter 30, Flame Over the Stars. The catalyst, once a rogue strand of human DNA mistaken for weakness, was no longer bound to biology. It had become philosophy. A recursive idea that moved faster than light, encoded in memory, unlocked through empathy. The fracture-born who survived now carried it with reverence, no longer twisted by purity doctrine. Their new symbol was not a weapon, but a flame curled around a mirror. The galaxy began reshaping. Borders softened. Species interbred. New cultures flourished not from domination but mutual transformation. And at the heart of it all, Earth pulsed like a beacon. A forge of myth. A lighthouse of meaning. Chapter 31, Beyond the Horizon. The Idojin traveled. Not with engines, but with stories. Wherever someone dreamed of Earth, it arrived. It carried no flag. It carried origin. The primordials faded into the background. Observers content that a new epoch had begun. They whispered, "The seed has taken." And just like that, they vanished. Earth wasn't the center of the universe, but it had become its conscience. A place not of power, but of permission. A spark others could choose to follow. The first Cognivant Council sent out a final message, beamed through the memory engine, etched in quantum filaments that would never decay. Read, "We are the story you feared would end. And now it begins." End of story. If you've made it this far, welcome to the edge of everything. Where humans weren't the strongest, or the oldest, or the most advanced. But we were the only ones with the courage to turn our flaws into flame, and offer that flame to the dark. If this tale lit a spark in you, subscribe to the Void Narratives. The stars are listening, and your story might be the next one they tell. Milky Way Fire. Want an image based on this final scene? Or shall we begin another epic?